I adore how welcoming everyone is to us when we stroll down the street. Before everything fell apart, he had a dream life, fame, and wealth that millions envied. Drew Scott was concealing a terrible tragedy that nearly ruined everything he had built behind the happy exterior of Property Brothers. Although the world witnessed his achievement, few were aware of the hardships he endured behind the scenes. What actually became of the seemingly successful celebrity? Join us as we share the heartbreaking reality about the twins' early years. Drew Scott and Jonathan Scott were born in Vancouver, Canada, on April 28, 1978. From the start, their lives were full with both creativity and discipline. They were identical twins and the youngest of the Scott family. They were raised in a home where hard work and creativity were equally appreciated by their parents, Jim and Joanne Scott. Jim Scott formerly worked in the motion picture business in Hollywood. He had a distinct outlook on life because of his work as a stuntman and actor. He had known the excitement of action, settings, and cameras, but he eventually left that route to create a more subdued existence centered on family and ranching. The boys developed an early interest in entertainment as a result of hearing tales from his time spent in the cinema. They also recognized in him the value of perseverance, self-control, and the readiness to change oneself when needed. Another type of impact came from their mother, Joanne. She appreciated structure, order, and education. She also ensured that her kids knew the importance of education and hard work. Drew and Jonathan were notable for their enthusiasm and inventiveness even as young children. They weren't satisfied with just sitting around doing nothing or depending on their parents. Jim felt that his kids should be given the opportunity to learn the importance of hard work. He established little chores around the house with incentives when he was 7 years old. The twins had already begun their foray into the realm of enterprise by the time they reached 8. They started producing nylon-wrapped hangers, a basic item that they made by hand. They chose to do more with this than just preserve it as a pastime. Offering the hangers to anyone who was willing to purchase them, they charmingly and resolutely went door to door in their neighborhood to introduce themselves. Although the task was challenging, it served as a crash school in perseverance, patience, and sales techniques. When one woman recognized their potential and ordered the hangers en masse, it was a game changer. This was more than simply a cash victory for the young boys. It demonstrated that their efforts could result in tangible achievement. Both of them were enraged by such order. They became aware of their capacity to produce something worthwhile and persuade others of its value. They were no longer merely kids searching for pocket money after that. They were aspiring business owners with aspirations that extended well beyond their small community. Their childhood home was anything but typical. Joanne made sure that school was not abandoned by continuing to mentor them in their academic endeavors. While Jim urged students to think creatively and seize possibilities, she placed more emphasis on reading, writing, and concentration. The twins had a well-rounded upbringing thanks to this blend of academic focus and creativity. They discovered how to set lofty goals and then work hard and prepare to achieve them. Earning money to buy toys or sweets wasn't the only goal of these early endeavors. They learned important lessons from the nylon hanger industry. They learned how to communicate with a variety of people, how to negotiate, and how to handle rejection without losing confidence. However, how did two young boys who wanted to be famous and sold hangers become well known on TV? Let's investigate. From cameras to clowns. Drew and Jonathan Scott's enthusiasm and drive only increased as they approached adolescence. The twins were already experimenting with methods to make money and hone their skills, whereas many young people spent their leisure time concentrating on sports or school. Performing at children's parties was one of their first endeavors. They received clown training, complete with tricks, balloons, and costumes, and soon gained recognition for their energetic performances in their town. Despite its humorous appearance, the work needed patience, discipline, and the capacity to maintain the interest of young audiences. These early performances served as a platform for them to gain confidence in front of strangers, learn how to perform, and make people laugh. In those packed living rooms full of laughing kids, they developed their sense of comedy and showmanship, which subsequently became a part of their television charm. It previously seemed that sports would be Drew's future. Being tall, slender, and naturally athletic, he aspired to be a professional basketball player. The thought of competing on the court appealed to his competitive character, and he threw himself into the game. Unfortunately, injuries disrupted this route. What had appeared like a promising future in athletics came to an abrupt halt, leaving him searching for a new direction. It was a challenging adjustment, but it also opened the door to a different passion that had been silently blossoming within him: entertainment. Having grown up in a household where their father, Jim, formerly thrived as a stuntman and actor, Drew was no stranger to the world of television and movies. He had always found that background fascinating, and he threw himself fully into that interest once basketball was out of the question. Soon, they started to show up. Drew scored modest roles in well-known films, including Smallville, where he worked as a body double for Tom Welling, as well as cameos in Breaker High and Madison. He gained invaluable first-hand experience on professional sets even though they weren't leading parts. He saw how directors oversaw performers, how productions were set up, and how each little element influenced the finished product. It was more than just a thrilling journey to be a part of these concerts. Drew got a taste of what working in entertainment was like, and he started to realize how much commitment it took. Timing, memorizing, and the value of remaining flexible in a field that rarely offered stability were among the lessons he learnt. These brief but significant encounters stoked his enthusiasm and made him believe that he belonged in front of the camera. Jonathan encouraged his brother's aspirations and shared the thrill of discovering new creative outlets, despite his preference for design and construction despite his equal talent. Despite his excitement, Drew soon understood that taking action by itself would not guarantee financial stability. Opportunities in the entertainment sector came and went without warning, making it an unpredictable field. He once again went to real estate, which he and Jonathan had experimented with while attending the University of Calgary, to support themselves. For other students, they had bought, refurbished, and rented out properties. And Drew recognized how his acting career could be supported by this skill set. His life underwent a sea change during this time. Acting and real estate were two very different interests that Drew was able to combine. He could, on the one hand, keep pursuing the excitement of appearing in movies and television shows. Conversely, he could depend on the consistent revenue and opportunity for problem-solving that real estate offered. His experience managing renters, negotiating transactions, and renovating homes provided him the assurance that he could always make ends meet, even if auditions didn't pan out. Another significant turning point that would subtly influence their future, from production to real estate, was waiting for them when they entered university. Drew and Jonathan Scott were committed to striking a balance between their academic pursuits and their financial independence when they enrolled at the University of Calgary. While many pupils merely paid attention to their schoolwork, the twins' early business endeavors had already cultivated an entrepreneurial mentality. They quickly recognized an opportunity that would set the foundation for their future. There was an abandoned property next to the school. And the brothers saw promise rather than ruin. They combined their meager funds, took the chance of buying the house, and put all of their effort into making it better. With perseverance, they fixed, painted, and enhanced every area until it was a cozy home fit for renters who were students. This choice turned out to be smart because the property soon produced consistent revenue, which made them both feel accomplished, as well as financial stability. They became interested in growing their efforts once their first home proved to be successful. In addition to being financially successful, renovating the property had also highlighted their innate abilities. Drew's talent for vision and negotiation complemented Jonathan's design and construction expertise. Together, they came to the realization that they had found a potent mixture that was replicable. The twins became more self-assured and well-known in their community as they worked on other projects. Peers and friends started seeing how regularly they turned dilapidated buildings into appealing areas. However, the process was not entirely seamless. It was frequently frustrating to work with realtors. They had to deal with agents who were ineffective or did not live up to their standards. Unwilling to let obstacles stop them, Drew made the decision to act independently. The brothers were able to handle transactions immediately when he completed his coursework and obtained his license as a realtor. This action was a crucial turning point. They could now finish projects with more control since Jonathan was concentrating on construction and Drew was managing the business aspect. The Scott Real Estate Company was soon founded as a result of their increasing professionalism. The Scott brothers had already flipped a number of properties by the time they were in their mid-20s. Every successful project enhanced their standing as astute and trustworthy financiers. They weren't merely young men trying their hand at various occupations. They were emerging as well-respected businesspeople with a distinct vision. However, Drew was unable to get rid of the dream that had plagued him since he was a teenager. The entertainment industry's allure persisted. Real estate offered security, but it did not completely satiate his creative nature, and acting had always been his love. Drew took a risk in 2006. In an attempt to pursue acting roles, he moved from Calgary to Vancouver, a city with a thriving film industry. Jonathan remained to oversee the real estate firm, making sure their expanding enterprise continued to prosper. But it wasn't an easy transition for Drew. It took more than just drive to break into the entertainment industry, and he soon found himself in financial difficulties. As he fell into debt, the steadiness he had once experienced seemed far away. His fortitude was put to the test during this time. Drew resorted to the abilities that had always helped him because he was unwilling to give up. He brought Vancouver's real estate market back to life, exerting the same intensity and dedication that had fueled their earlier triumphs. As a result, he was able to establish contacts in the entertainment sector and achieve financial stability. He methodically grew his network of contacts, went to classes, and looked for auditions. Although juggling both routes was difficult, it showed his flexibility and tenacity. The boy's love of entertainment never wavered, even throughout this trying period. Davidian Production Group was co-founded in 2002 by Drew, Jonathan, and their older brother, JD. The company demonstrated that their interest in media was more than just a fad by concentrating on independent film and television projects. It demonstrated a long-term vision that fused their entrepreneurial spirit with their artistic sensibilities. For Drew, it meant that he was still making a contribution to the realm of production and storytelling, despite the fact that acting parts were few. The pitch that would make all the difference then came. Here's how the brothers persuaded a television network to give them a chance. Property Brothers Ascent. Television was looking for the next big thing in reality programming by the late 2000s. After witnessing the success of talent contests, networks were keen to incorporate that enthusiasm with fresh content. This goal led to the creation of Realtor Idol, a pitch that was intended to resemble American Idol in format. It was intended to show off real estate agents vying for attention, but the idea was never popular. When the concept was first being developed, audiences did not react to it, and the creators knew they needed to reconsider their strategy. Cineflex, the production firm, made the decision to take a different approach. Instead of mimicking a singing contest, they had an idea for a show that would focus on the emotional journey of families looking for a place to call home. Initially, producers thought Drew Scott would be a perfect fit to help purchasers navigate the real estate process, and the working title was changed to My Dream Home. In order to balance his appeal with design ideas, they intended to pair him with a female host. Something was lacking even though this version was more in line with reality television as viewers were familiar with it. Drew realized that bringing Jonathan in would make the show much more interesting. Jonathan already had years of expertise building and renovating, and he had a close bond with his brother, unlike other possible co-hosts. They stood for two sides of the same coin when combined. Jonathan could imagine changes and carry out the actual work, while Drew could handle contracts, negotiations, and the home buying process. Since they were siblings with a common history and sense of humor, their innate chemistry gave even more realism. It soon became evident that the brothers had discovered something special when Cineflex decided to test this formula. The proposal developed, and the series was formally launched under the title Property Brothers in 2011 when HGTV approved it. The structure was simple but efficient. By taking them through listings that struck a balance between their ambitions and their finances, Drew assisted families in finding possible houses. After the purchase was finalized, Jonathan took over the design and renovation work, transforming what frequently appeared to be a fixer-upper into a dream home. The emotional storytelling that permeated each episode, in addition to the actual process of flipping houses, was what set the show apart. At the beginning, viewers witnessed hopeful families who were overburdened by tension while construction was underway, and eventually broke down in tears upon seeing the final result. Many others wished they could go on this tour because it reflected their own experiences. It was more than just flooring, paint, and walls. Giving families hope for a better future was the goal. The personalities of Jonathan and Drew enhanced the format. Their competitive teasing added vitality to the broadcast, their humor eased stressful situations, and their ability to relate to customers made viewers feel involved. Property Brothers evolved into a narrative about family, dreams, and metamorphosis rather than just another remodeling program. The program was immediately successful. It garnered high ratings in its first season and started to gain popularity abroad. The idea of looking for affordable accommodation and witnessing the transformation of a space could resonate with audiences in several nations. For fans who might have been wary of more polished or ostentatious reality stars, the brothers' Canadian roots provided them with a warm, welcoming image. They struck me as sincere, diligent, and genuinely interested in assisting others. Another factor was when the show debuted. Many people struggled with unstable housing markets in the early 2010s. Viewers were given optimism when they saw Jonathan transform dilapidated rooms into works of art and drew close deals. It demonstrated that goals of homeownership could be achieved even during difficult financial times if one was creative and persistent. The program swiftly established itself as one of HGTV's most dependable offerings, enhancing the network's standing and attracting sponsors keen to reach its expanding viewership. Though not in the acting roles he had previously envisioned, Drew finally felt his lifelong ambition of appearing on screen come true behind the scenes. Rather, he found a new kind of performance where his real estate expertise merged with his capacity for connection and entertainment. Jonathan also took center stage by using his design expertise to communicate stories. They had discovered the ideal platform to showcase their skills together. After securing their fame, the brothers continued to perform. They established an empire. However, success came with unexpected demands. The empire grows. Property Brothers' success demonstrated that Drew and Jonathan Scott had discovered a formula that appealed to viewers all around the world. They quickly went from being TV hosts to becoming the head of a burgeoning franchise. Brother vs. was the first spin-off. Brother took advantage of their antagonism as siblings. The twins competed with one another rather than working together, each remodeling a home within the same spending limit and time frame. Fans enjoyed the new humor and tension that the lighthearted competition brought out in their contrasting personalities. Property Brothers Forever Home followed, concentrating on families that wished to renovate homes they previously owned. This show has more emotional weight than the first series. Customers weren't merely upgrading. They were making investments in houses where they intended to raise kids, commemorate life events, and create futures. The burden was higher for Drew and Jonathan because they were responsible for changing entire lives rather than just making superficial adjustments. Celebrity IOU was their most ambitious endeavor. The brothers collaborated with Michael Bublé, Melissa McCarthy, and Brad Pitt, among other Hollywood celebrities, to make substantial renovations as a surprise to loved ones. Celebrities joining the brothers in swinging hammers combined star power with genuine gratitude to attract viewers who might not have otherwise watched a house renovation program. At the same time, their business, Scott Brothers Entertainment, branched out into documentaries, lifestyle shows, and even screenplays. Drew and Jonathan were now businesspeople running a media empire, not just TV stars. They were essential to HGTV's profitability and identity at this point, making them some of the network's most bankable personalities. But difficulties arose behind the glitz. Constant travel, hard hours, and limited recuperation time were all part of filming several episodes in various locales. They were executive producers in charge of deadlines and finances in addition to being hosts. They were frequently mentally and physically exhausted by the workload. As the franchise expanded, it became more difficult to maintain authenticity. Although the well-executed production was criticized, fans anticipated warmth and laughter. There were rumors of tight budgets, hurried schedules, and homeowners who acknowledged that life was not always ideal after filming, compared to how it looked on TV. When homeowners from a spin-off filed a lawsuit in 2019 accusing contractors of subpar work, the brothers were themselves embroiled in scandal. Even though Drew and Jonathan weren't in charge of the building, their reputation was on the line, so they had to protect it while still producing shows that gave people hope. The twins were well known by the 7th season of Property Brothers in 2019, which was broadcast in over 150 countries. But running such an empire came with constant pressures. The pressure was particularly taxing for Drew. When fans saw he was appearing in episodes less regularly, rumors and conjectures started to circulate. Was he just worn out, or was there something more sinister going on in the background? However, just when it seemed impossible to stop, Drew started to inexplicably disappear from the show. What was going on in the background? Let me share some startling information with you. The fans were horrified by the health scare. By 2019, Property Brothers was one of the most dependable shows for viewers worldwide and a mainstay on HGTV. The fame of Drew and Jonathan Scott was at its peak. Suddenly, Drew was absent from significant scenes, and the series-defining chemistry felt unbalanced. Online discussion boards were ablaze with conjecture. Some questioned if the brothers had engaged in covert combat. Others, however, were worried that Drew might leave the franchise completely. But the reality was much more disturbing. For over a year, Drew had been fighting a severe and enigmatic disease in secret. At first, neither he nor his family knew what was causing it. In an effort to avoid disappointing his team or fans, he kept a large portion of the battle under wraps, but the cost was becoming too great to overlook. His symptoms were concerning and persistent. Drew was always tired, with symptoms similar to the flu but never going away. Because of his erratic digestive system, he experienced acute gastrointestinal distress that made it difficult for him to spend long hours on set. Simple tasks became too much to handle. He found that heat caused his body to respond strongly, and that regular physical activity left him exhausted. He could no longer exercise, which had been a daily component of his regimen. The man who had made a living on his charisma and inexhaustible vitality was becoming more and more frail. The ambiguity made things much more difficult. For months, no one was able to identify the cause of Drew's discomfort despite his repeated consultations with specialists and tests. There were more questions than answers at the end of each session. Drew struggled with the worry that his illness might be life-threatening as Jonathan continued renovating and the cameras kept shooting. His family, who watched helplessly as he looked for a diagnosis, also experienced emotional exhaustion from the uncertainty. The solution finally became clear following thorough medical evaluations. Drew's crippling symptoms were attributed to a mix of chronic fatigue syndrome and mercury poisoning. It was a relief as much as a terrible realization. On the one hand, the diagnostic verified that his condition was severe and may be lethal if treatment was not received. On the other hand, following months of uncertainty, it offered a clear therapeutic path. Drew had to face the fact that he could no longer push himself as hard after receiving the diagnosis. He took a break from filming, thus Jonathan was left to handle the show mostly by himself. The absence was instantly apparent to viewers, and even though the series went on, many felt that it did not feel the same without both brothers on screen together. Longtime admirers were really concerned that Drew would not make a comeback. Did their legendary collaboration come to an end? Drew concentrated on becoming better throughout this time. Strict medical care, lifestyle modifications, and treatments aimed at lowering the harmful mercury levels in his body were all part of the treatment. He slowed down and became more mindful of his nutrition and rest. His health started to get better gradually but steadily. Although it took some time, the road to recovery was a step in the right direction. Drew also took the deliberate decision to tell his fans about his experience as he recovered. He publicly shared his disappointments, anxieties, and the lessons he was learning via social media posts. By doing this, he transformed the personal adversity into a public statement on the value of taking care of oneself. His candor inspired many viewers who had experienced their own health issues. Drew accepted his vulnerability rather than trying to hide it, demonstrating that even well-known people who are known for their achievements and optimism face difficulties. By the time he completely rejoined the show, Drew had changed his viewpoint in addition to regaining his vitality. He learned from the experience that, however how hard a career may be, one's health must come before one's work. His tenacity motivated supporters and gave his public persona a more nuanced aspect. He was more than just the affable real estate agent who negotiated fantasy mansions. In addition, he was a survivor who had overcome the threat of losing everything. Drew's heart, however, was already on a new path while his body recovered. One that would permanently alter his existence. Drew Scott's future, love, and family. In the midst of filming, remodeling, and creating a television empire, Drew Scott discovered something even more transformative than professional achievement. He met Linda Fan at a neighborhood bar in 2010 while traveling through Los Angeles. What started out as a fortuitous encounter swiftly evolved into something remarkable. They discovered during their talk that they both had a passion for adventure, travel, and worldly curiosity. A relationship based on respect and appreciation was quickly formed from that initial spark of connection. Drew's exuberance was counterbalanced by Linda's disposition. She was a strategic, grounded venture capitalist who prioritized long-term growth and astute decision-making. Linda provided stability and perspective, while Drew flourished on his inventiveness and extroverted personality. They forged a partnership in which their disparate traits complemented one another. When friends and family saw how well they complemented each other, it became evident that their relationship went beyond simple infatuation. After laying a solid foundation for 8 years, Drew and Linda made the decision to move forward. They were married in a stunning ceremony in Italy in 2018. Their love story was beautifully portrayed by the event, which showcased their appreciation of family customs and personal style. The occasion, which was attended by loved ones, was full of happiness, music, and touching moments. The Drew and Linda Say I Do TLC show also included their wedding, giving viewers a unique glimpse into their personal life. Many people saw it as an opportunity to get a glimpse of Drew's other side, one that showed his intense love and dedication outside of the TV. In 2022, their romance grew even further. When Parker James Scott, their first child, was born, Drew fully welcomed the new dimension that fatherhood brought to his life. He frequently talks about how happy he is to see his baby develop and how it has changed his outlook. Drew prioritizes his family over the pressures of filming and managing several businesses. He gives followers a peek into the joy he and Linda have created together by posting pictures of peaceful evenings at home, travel experiences, and fun family moments on social media. Despite these personal achievements, Drew has continued to advance in his career. By taking on new initiatives, he and Jonathan keep growing their brand. Shows like Don't Hate Your House and Backed by the Brothers are scheduled to debut in 2024, bringing new concepts to their extensive repertoire of popular productions. These endeavors demonstrate their capacity to continue inventing while maintaining relationships with audiences that value their blend of relatability and competence. Outside of the television industry, Drew is now a fervent supporter of eco-friendly interior design. He highlights the value of environmentally friendly restoration techniques, demonstrating that building stunning homes need not compromise environmental sustainability. He has co-authored a number of publications on house renovation and design with Jonathan, which has further solidified their standing as respected authorities in the field. Drew's story serves as a motivational illustration of resiliency and creativity. He has overcome personal obstacles, gained international acclaim, and discovered happiness in family and love. He is now a committed businessman in addition to being a captivating television personality. A caring father, a loving spouse, and an enthusiastic champion. As his story develops, fans are reminded that the greatest achievements in life frequently come from the connections we cultivate and the principles we follow, rather than from celebrity or wealth. What do you think of Drew Scott's amazing journey from health issues to happiness with his family and professional success? Leave a comment below with your opinions.